Welcome back everyone. Yesterday we talked about the iPhone that potentially had the best battery life in my opinion. Now let's talk about which iPhone may have had the worst battery life. Now I didn't want to go super back, I think like the first iPhone may have not been that great anymore or whatever, but in recent times, in my opinion, one of the iPhones that actually kind of had one of the worst battery lives out of any iPhone I owned was probably the iPhone XS Max. And this was a phone that had no right of having as bad of a battery life that it did in my opinion. There may have been phones that actually had a worse battery life potentially. Phones like the iPhone 8, the iPhone 6S, those phones had pretty bad battery life too, even the 7 to some extent. But you kind of expect that, those iPhones had some of the lowest milliamp hour batteries within the, genre of iPhones they came out with. Obviously the iPhone 4s and those devices were a little bit worse, but the XS Max had no right of having that bad of a battery life in my opinion. Now compared to the iPhone XR, the XS Max battery size was actually bigger, but because of that huge display, because of that, higher resolution display and all that, and also I don't know what it was, maybe that, A12 Bionic chip inside of it wasn't super optimized for the XS Max, but during my duration of owning it, and even now, it really isn't that good of a battery life in my opinion. Now here's the thing, I think this phone had to have had that size of battery in order for the 11 Pro Max to have as good of a battery life as it did. Just yesterday I even said the 11 Pro Max had the best battery life out of all the iPhones, and it also had the biggest size battery. The XS Max at that time had the biggest size battery out of any iPhone that ever came out, but the iPhone XR, the cheaper iPhone, actually had better battery life. And even if the XS Max's battery life was better than the XS and it was better than some other iPhones that came out before it, it really had no right of being as bad as it was. Maybe it wasn't horrible, but it was the best flagship of that time that Apple made, so they should have put a bigger size battery inside of that thing like they did with the 11 Pro Max. So because of that, it makes me think that the XS Max's battery life probably was the worst one out of most of the iPhones that came out recently. Now, like I said, if we went back to the iPhone 4, if we went back to the 3GS, maybe those ones were worse, but the XS Max's battery life was the one that should have been better when it first came out. And like I mentioned, that was one of its biggest complaints when it first came out, even when I owned it. But also, there were battery cases that came out for the XS Max, those wireless charging cases that Apple made, and in my opinion, if I owned one of the XS Maxes and I used it as a main phone, I would 100% have bought one of those cases. I think I actually did buy it, or maybe I didn't, I don't really remember. But that would definitely have been one of the things I would have done, because the XS Max's battery life really wasn't as great as it should have been in my opinion. So that's probably the iPhone that had one of the worst battery lives in recent times that I can remember. If you guys have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.